Okay, so welcome to Jose and Sharlann. Take one. Let's see how this goes.
Welcome,
Yeah.
welcome.
Hey, so I'm Jose, and this is Sharlann, and we have been friends for a pretty long time. I would say 2004, 2005.
Oh, wow.
It's long
Yes,
enough. I mean,
very long.
listen, it's longer than I've known a lot of folks around here. Okay, let me tell you. But I would like to say that both of us haven't been married, and she's very insightful. I have a different perspective. We started talking about dating. I said, "Hey, let's get this. Let's record some of this and post them online, right?" So, Charlene, we want to kick off with 35ish and dating. Why is that so important?
Yes, 35ish and dating. So, what is that? It's for those of us who have lived a little life. A lot of us have accomplished a lot of things we want to do. Some of us have kids,
So,
and not all of us. Some of us may have been through divorce, other things. Also, the main thing is that dating, the way that it used to be when we first started dating, has changed. And we really need to talk about it because a lot of our peers are struggling. And as we go through our own journey with just healing to be the best self we can for everything, whether it be dating and just life, living your best life. We want to share that with everybody.
so I got a question. So, give me the 60-second rundown. And I hate to sound like the presidential debate where we're kind of time boxing every response, but give me the 60-second rundown of what dating used to be versus modern dating, I think is the term, but which is relative.
Well, I would say, in a nutshell, technology is the difference. So, dating before was done in person. It was you meet people.
Wait.
What?
Versus not in person.
Okay. Let me rephrase that. So, what I'm talking about is not dating so much as the precursor of
The
dating.
interaction, yeah.
How are you meeting the people that you will date?
Yeah.
Are they friends of a friend? Did you go to school with them, work with them? You
Church,
encountered those people in person
Yes.
initially, the meeting that led to you finding the person
So
that
are
you
you
would
saying
like
that
to
still
date.
doesn't happen?
Oh, it absolutely
Okay.
happens.
Okay.
But what I am finding is that it is not the primary way anymore as a trend. And what that means is there are people who won't date online, they don't want to meet people online to date. However, that omits a very large population from their dating pool for those who are interested in dating online or are comfortable.
So wait. So you're saying that those who choose to date online have a smaller pool, or you're saying those
I'm
who
saying
not?
that the choose not to,
Okay, gotcha.
because you can always meet someone wherever you go. It's not even necessarily, I could list places that would definitely take a long time. But once you have people you meet in person and the encounters online or seeking dates, meeting people to date online, then you have a larger pool to choose from.
So then, you
Also,
okay?
a larger geographic area because you do not have to be local
Yeah. So
to
then, if there are not
someone.
barriers, you can actually date
Correct.
someone in California and you be in New York. Now I don't know why someone would do that, but because I think
Well, if
distance adds a whole layer of complexity
absolutely.
to dating.
However, if you feel you're compatible to someone, is that more important?
Than the distance. But
Correct,
it could be
because
pseudo compatibility. So you could
right.
actually line up in what you're looking for and be compatible with Donald Duck.
You can be compatible with their own online persona.
Exactly. And then, so I always say, hey, the true precursor to dating is when you add long distance, is the long distance part. Because once you come into close proximity, now the true dating begins. That's when you can begin evaluating who this person really is.
Right.
Because you don't get that.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
However, if this is what dating also consists of now, we can't leave it out, right?
I get it, but I think it takes a little bit more time because there's so much I can hide, so much you can hide long distance.
Right. That's
And
true.
people do that. I mean, the catfishing.
It's a
Catfishing happens
very
in the same,
real
sometimes
thing.
in the same town.
But when people are listening to us or joining us in this conversation, if they are long distance or dating by long distance, should we leave them out?
No,
We
no,
can't.
no.
Because it's valid and it's real.
Because also mean, hey, we dated for 6 months to a year. This person had to move to San Francisco for a job.
Correct.
I visit them every 2 weeks, or they visit me every 2 weeks. We're back and forth
Right.
until they come back to the city, or I decide to move, to where they are.
And when we have challenges in life, dating or otherwise, one of the most difficult things is when we start to feel we're alone. We may know other people are experiencing it, but if somebody is not comfortable enough to talk about it, then they are going through that alone. They don't have anyone to bounce ideas off, and they're trying to, you can go in your head and run a lot of scenarios, but do you really know? Like, if someone else has had a similar experience,
Yeah, that's true. That's
you
true.
can compare
Yeah.
and contrast.
Absolutely. So the title of this is 35-ish and dating. Why 35-ish? Because it was Charlann's idea, everybody. So
Was it?
35-ish
It was a
And not-
collaboration.
and not 25-ish.
Okay.
So-
Because at 35 or older, you have very likely, if you've been able to stay on track, if you wanted to pursue higher education, you've at least started that.
Yep.
You may be on your career path and other accomplishments. At 35, you are maybe have figured yourself out to a point where you
You would hope.
feel that, okay, now I'm ready to look for that significant other because I've accomplished these things. So the dating at that age may be a little more serious versus casual, which casual dating is also more popular than when I first started dating, maybe for you as well. So that's why that age and 35-ish, because we don't want to box anything in. Because if someone is 25 and this is their experience, then this is for them too.
Yes, but we both agree
Yeah.
that at 25, things about you, you're not as hardened, right?
Correct.
So things become more set in concrete, so to speak, by the time you get 35, because now you've lived. So let's suppose you did whatever you wanted to do up to the age of 25. You're 2 years into your career. You're 3 years out of college, right? And then you start meeting and dating, and you find someone, and then whether you don't date and you just start like dive headfirst into career,
Right.
At 35, you're right. You do know more about yourself, but at the same time, there might be certain things you don't want to compromise on, or if you were divorced. Now you know what you don't want,
Right.
Now you may mistakenly be unwilling to compromise on things that you should compromise on. So you got 10 things. Hey, I'm not going to compromise on these. Well,
Right.
it's really the 7 I'm trying to protect. But I just kind of went across the board, and now I am not compromising on these other 3.
So
One
we
of those
have
3 could be deal
the
breakers.
deal breakers. Deal breakers are very important, but also being able to look at your deal breakers and understand why do you have those deal breakers. Were they passed on to you, taught by a parent or another mentor, someone you looked up to, and that's their belief system? Is it something that violates a strongly held belief like religion or other ethics that you hold dear? Or is it based on, could be even a misconception you have about if I date someone who has this or does this, then this other thing will happen?
wait, so there's initial attraction.
Absolutely.
We talk, we exchange numbers.
Right.
First date should be something fun.
Absolutely.
Second or third date should be, let's talk about what we're looking for, deal breakers, so on and so forth.
Right.
And the reason why I say a date, like face to face, where we can just hash it out.
Right.
Because we're going to walk away from that probably knowing whether we want to take steps forward
Proceed or not.
or you want to move back. So let me just give you a quick example. So I remember watching a clip of News Radio, the show.
One of my favorites. Okay. I know it.
I don't know that I watched that show other than that clip. We'll get back to that. So they say, hey, you know what? I'm a businessman. And the lady says, well, so am I, right? Okay, well, why don't we get married? All right, so let's see what, let's negotiate it. So he says he wants to live in Central Park West. This is north. Okay, done. Okay, bam. So he says, I want to have 2 children. She says, okay, I can do that. One has to be a male child. She says, I see what I could do. Okay, done, right? He says, okay, so I want to go be able to vacation twice a year, once in Hawaii. Oh, then she says Key West or something like that. He says, okay, I'm amenable to Key West, but what about Hawaii? She says, no. So is that a deal breaker? Yes, well, we tried.
I know that clip, and I love that clip, Jose. Yes. And then I think very important why second or third date, because you've gotten that initial meeting out, if the chemistry and everything, because there's the initial attraction, and then you're on a date with someone, their mannerisms and things they do, you're also observing that, and how is that still in line with what you're looking for. But also, everyone's time is valuable. So how long do you want to date someone before you know these things?
You don't want to go 3 months down the line, because this is the thing.
Right.
So let's just be, we're adults, right? You get into a relationship, eventually sex is going to get involved.
Absolutely.
And then it becomes more complicated, because I think sex allows the person, the individual's body and feelings to make commitments that don't even register with them.
Right.
So it exacerbates what their current feelings and thoughts for this person could be.
Right.
That could go either way.
Or
it could exacerbate the problem.
sex clouds the issue because it brings in a lot of
I get it.
other factors.
So I think that at this age, and it's crazy because, wisdom in time does things to a person. 20, 30
And
years
hopefully
ago, we
with
thought
time
differently.
you have wisdom.
Hopefully.
And please don't mistake that we're saying time and experience means you have wisdom.
No, because I've seen people who are 35, 40, 45, and they are mature in age, but
Right.
emotionally, they're somewhere in their 20s. And there's certain things they don't know how to process.
Right.
That becomes a problem, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit differently, but yes, just be,
Right.
it's not a given because the calendar months fall off.
Right.
You age, it doesn't mean that you are mature in every
Aspect.
sense.
Right.
And that's important. But I think, yes, early on, let's talk about our likes, dislikes, deal breakers, so on and so forth. And let's hold true to ourselves, because
Yes.
I think we sell ourselves short. We end up shortchanging ourselves, and it leads to a bad experience. It leads to
Right.
lost time. There's people that knew that, hey, going into this, well, this person's really not for me. Oh, but I like this, but he's like that, and so on and so forth.
Oh, well,
And you
Jose,
waste
you're talking
3
about
years.
ignoring red flags.
So we agree that the red flags will be a whole segment on its own. But let's
But
say
it
red flags.
deserves mention, because if we are true to ourselves and listen to ourselves, we really that voice is telling us, is warning us, and sometimes we choose to ignore it because maybe we're physically attracted to a person, or maybe they check all our boxes on paper.
Or they're filling a temporary gap
Yes.
that somehow we're painting them beyond that temporary
Right.
status or placeholder. So it's like a seat filler.
Well,
You have to know. So we talk about casual. You have to know when this person is a seat filler. They're
Right.
gonna go. They're gonna. We have a certain show. We have
Right.
certain seats, and in the front we can't have any gaps. we got people prepared to fill the seat, but that's their
Right.
only job. They're not the real person or the actor to the side of the
Right.
horse.
They can't stay there
They
for
don't
the
have
rest of the
staff.
show.
No, they are a seat filler. And
Absolutely.
they can be a seat filler for this time around. That doesn't mean next year we're calling them back for another.
That's correct.
Because the seat might be filled.
But if we're true to ourselves, then we know that.
So how do you behave for a seat filler?
Well, from my opinion, that's where honesty is important. Because if both people are on the same page, that that's what the situation is, hopefully it will work out that way.
So a temporary person is different from a casual relationship. Think about it.
Okay.
Because a
So
seat filler,
expand on that.
A seat filler can go on dates with.
Because they know
Think of-
they're in
think
that
of-
role for temporarily.
Think of vacation, or think if I have to go work in Madrid for a certain period of time.
And you would like a companion to
I'd
travel
be
with
fri-
you.
No, and I'd
Oh,
be
you
friends
befriend
with
someone there. Okay.
Right? Okay. So I know that I'm only going to be there a short period of time. In 2 months, I'll be back in the States, and I'm not going to return.
Right.
So I have to accept the fact that this could be a temporary situation,
Right.
even though, yes, it has all the features of dating
Right.
and becoming even exclusive, if you will.
Right.
But I think in contrast to casual, where you don't have to go on dates, it's probably preferred that you don't go on dates.
Right.
You meet the person where you meet the
It
person.
serves a totally different purpose
Yes.
altogether.
Yes. Yep.
Agreed.
Because you don't want to confuse things. Because I think that there's you know, there's a saying that you can't make room for new things in your closet before before cleaning out your
Right.
closet, right? You can't make room for new friends if you don't clean up some of the old friends that may not be good for you, right?
Right.
You can't get ready for a new situation unless you clean
Deal
up
with
this
your old
situation,
situation.
right?
Absolutely.
So casual means, and again, I'm not condoning any of this, but it is what
You're
it is.
just
at this
discussing what is in the climate, dating and other beyond in
Yeah.
this current day and
point. Yeah.
age.
So casual is something that you don't want it to get in the way of Mr. Right, Mrs. Right, passing you by. And I
Correct.
hate to use that term because there's no such thing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
No pun intended.
Apparently.
So
Yes.
yeah, but that's the thing. If you spend too much time with the casual and treat it like the temporary person, right? Situation, what
Then
ends
it-
up happening is you're gonna the person that you were meant to meet
Is gonna pass you
and
by.
you have not even seen them.
Right.
Didn't even notice them.
Absolutely.
And then when they looked at you, you were busy.
Right.
So it's like the old payphones, the ones that work. It's occupied. So if it's occupied, I gotta go find me another one.
Yeah. Very true.
So, I think red flags is such a big topic because I literally see people running full speed into a brick wall.
Right. That's so true.
And the red flags go from A through Z, through double A through double Z. And it's almost like a spreadsheet. It keeps on going.
And then also, I think it deserves mention that friends and family members, especially parents, if you're close with your parents, often notice that you are ignoring a red flag, jumping over it to get into a
Why do
situation.
we justify it? Is the dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin levels, are we drunk off that?
I believe in our culture that we're taught that you date, marry, have kids. There's a more highly accepted order to things with relationship and what is successful in life. I've seen some of my very successful girlfriends be asked, well, when are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? Well, is that really how they should be measured? I'm not sure if males or men deal with the same thing or if it materializes differently. But is my peer less than if she doesn't have a husband and or a family?
No, but I think the sense is that you are, because she's coming into a situation where more and more of her friends are married.
Are in that situation.
So it is different from men because we do the marrying. In other words, we take a lady and we make her our wife. The lady really can't make us their husband. So traditionally, that's not how it works. I understand. I've seen the shows. I got the women.
So I'm not debating what you're saying,
So I'm
but then
just saying within the psyche of the man. So
Okay.
forget the tradition. Just
right,
the psyche
but
of the
then
man is-
that's we go back to what is 35ish in dating. Is the tradition now
obviously Buddy Hell.
tradition? Because yeah, we're hitting a lot of points. Tradition is it's beautiful if that's what you want, but if that's not what you want, that it is your life to choose, and tradition is turned on in, and it's awesome when people can use stick to tradition if that's what you want. But if that doesn't fit your life, your culture, your family, who am I to tell you stick to tradition? When you're unhappy in your traditional situation, dating, marriage, otherwise, am I the person that's going to come and console you now? Or I don't suffer from that because I have no issue with tradition, but I respect everybody's right to choose what situation is right for them. But hoping.
So even if you got a best friend and you see this road, this path that she's chosen is not going to end well.
But
you
that's.
Still respect do you still respect the path that she's chosen?
I have to respect the path that she's chosen, and to me, being the best friend, if it's a true friend, because there are different types of friends. They're associates, they're true friends, and they're different variations.
I heard somebody say you got confidants, you got comrades, and what's the other C word? But they all play a different role. Only one is really close to you.
Right.
And then one is probably with you because things are going bad for you, things are going bad for them. So that
Right.
It sounds like you're both lost, and I'm
right.
just following you through the
Like the
neighborhood to get
misery
out.
loves company.
So,
So-
one feeds off the other, but then once the need is met, they go separate ways.
So if we're speaking of one of my true friends who are like sisters to me, or even my sister who is a close friend for me, who I can speak honestly with or most honestly with, then I would share my concern if I can do that without hurting them. Because sometimes
Describe a scenario where you would hurt them.
well, if they have their selves so heavily invested in something, me coming to them with the truth, sincerely from my heart, that I do not want you to get hurt, can still be hurtful. And if they can't receive it, I have not helped
You're
them.
talking about can't handle the truth, but sometimes we're not going to receive it because we're caught up, right? We're caught up in the game. Well, how do they put it? You got me all messed up in the game, right? Sometimes they're like that, and that usually happens early on.
But that's why it's so circular. Because if you are true to yourself and I am true to myself, if my dear friend is true to themselves, then they will be better equipped to receive the information.
So I know this was only 2 years ago.
Okay.
But at 35, were you true to yourself? It was 2 years ago. You should be all up here.
Truer than most.
Okay, gotcha.
Because we want to speak in absolutes about things that are gradients.
Does it exist?
And black and white thinking is an unhealthy thing, but it makes us feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But what is ever really black and white
So you can't
with
come
people?
Up, you can't come up with certain rules and be absolute like you're saying because it won't work. You're dealing with another person that you must contend with. So when people say, hey, well, I'd rather be by myself, what you're saying is I'm not willing to be in a situation where I have to contend with somebody, I have to resolve conflict, I have to do this,
Compromise
because
and
why?
everything else.
Because you are faced with that on a daily basis.
Right.
Versus being alone, you just wake up, it's just you.
Well,
can
you
be
have
in a
to
good
deal
mood,
with
bad mood.
you have to deal with yourself, and let's not.
But we don't.
It's not to be
We don't.
underestimated though, because if you're all alone, you're either going to deal with yourself or you're going to deal with a loneliness of I'm alone, I'm by myself, but I can't deal with myself.
I've seen a lot of people leave a relationship, claim they're going to work on themselves,
Right,
don't work on themselves, get into many relationships, screw things up even more,
right,
and then next, 3-4 years have gone by.
right. That's true.
So we rarely work on ourselves. So to me, so if you're just dating someone, that's one thing. When
Right.
it's marriage, obviously it's a whole different ballpark. There's commitments involved, so you want to commit to making things better, trying to work through it. It's not going to be easy. There's a lot of weight there because you have a lot of things hanging in the balance, and there's sometimes
Right.
a lot to lose there, right?
Right.
But dating is a little bit different. So what we're talking about, hey, once we when we meet the person, we start liking them, and then we start going out, and then essentially, dating can go on. I want to say 2-3 months, right?
Right.
Before we decide that hey, it's going to be like this or like that, and be exclusive. So since we're talking about the red flags, I'm going to run down a few things I got listed here.
Okay.
What I want from you is like a 10-second response to each of one of these. So it's going to be like a
Okay.
quick
Okay.
flashcard version of this. All right?
Okay.
So, and I don't have my glasses on, but so red flags, trust.
So trust is a big thing. However, there are levels to trust. So in a relationship, we're not talking about blind trust like we would speak of blind faith like we would in religion. So, but there are levels to trust. Like trust, what type of trust?
So what if I lie about my mother, my father? I lie about my last situation.
Then
First
you're
mention.
a liar.
So
And
am I
that's,
a liar because I lied about those things? What if I don't lie about anything else, but I lied to you about those things?
those are very important things. And why can't you be
Why?
honest?
So why?
Right.
So I know.
So it's
I
not
know
the
men
lie.
And I know women that don't want to discuss mom or dad and would rather, and they don't talk to their mom and
Okay.
dad, which comes up to the next.
But
flag.
then me lying to you versus saying, I don't want to discuss that.
But people
are
don't
two.
know how to take that. They want to be all up in your business. Oh, why? Now all of a sudden there's like this mystery box that they want you to open. And very few people are mature enough to respect that boundary.
Right.
Okay? Or start speculating certain things. So anyway, we don't
Those
spend too much time.
boundaries, we're going to go back to that.
So what
Okay.
about,
cool.
all right, so don't ignore the writing on the wall. So mommy and daddy issues.
Yes, mommy
seconds.
and daddy issues are major because our relationship with our parents shape in a lot of ways or impact how we deal with others, especially in a relationship.
And you can point that conflict to your partner. all the time.
Correct.
Okay. So love bombing.
Love bombing. So just the whole, just giving so much affection and compliments that it's not really realistic.
Okay.
You know, you want to have someone have only these positive vibes from you,
Okay.
but that's there's no person that's all made of positivity.
No.
So that's love bombing.
But we have to be like, I was taught, which is difficult, to be like the moon. Always show my bright side.
Okay,
So for the most part,
but
I
love,
only know you as a friend.
right?
I've only truly ever seen the bright side of Sharlann. Don't get me wrong.
Have you?
Because I haven't felt it. So you may have been targeting your anger to someone else.
Okay.
It wasn't towards me.
Or maybe having a rough day, or, I'm chronically ill, so sometimes not being well will affect a person's disposition, but it's not genuine. Love bombing is not genuine.
So is love bombing, does that include, I made up this entire relationship with this person? In my head.
It
That's
consists.
not materialized yet.
It's more so love bombing is specifically when a person is just showering you with compliments. They may very quickly say, I love you, before they really, really know you well enough to
I
love
don't like
you.
that. I'm uncomfortable with that.
I don't either. I don't,
I was in a situation that the person was like, hey, I know you want to say it, but it was too early on. I'm like, I felt like I was coerced into.
It does.
Yeah.
That is, yeah. So it's just, so by love bombing, what they do is it softens you up for whatever else will follow. That's
Okay.
the purpose of
So I'm
love
trying to
bombing.
look at this right here, and it says love bombing is an attempt to influence a person
Mm-hmm.
by demonstrations of attention and affection. It can be used in different ways and for either positive or negative purposes. Psychologists
Correct.
have identified love bombing as a possible part of a cycle of abuse and have warned against it.
Correct, because love bombing is also something. You speak of abuse. That's one of our major we have red flags that if your safety is in jeopardy, you are.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to address that later. But so, have you had occasion? Maybe we saw on a TV show or something where an abusive spouse, and I say abusive spouse because it can be a female spouse that's abusive or a male.
I've seen that.
Physically
I've seen that
or
where someone
mentally.
was dating someone I know was dating someone, and these were professionals. These were
Yes.
PhD type people, and the man was crying when he talked about his abusive marriage,
Okay.
his first marriage, because the female was abusive towards him verbally and physically. So it happens.
It is, and it's a valid thing that deserves attention, more attention than what it receives. It has to be respected in the same way because it's wrong either way.
Before we
But
move forward, though, I just want to say that if anyone's in an abusive relationship, immediately find a way to get help and get out of the relationship. In other words, get to safety.
safety.
Get to
yes.
safety first. Worry about relationships second or third, but get to safety. Okay. But
So-
let's move on for a quick second
Well,
because I want you to hit
but
some.
so the statement of just an abusive partner, part of the love bombing is all the apologies, the gifts to make up. So that is.
But these are
it's-
also these are also red flags. I'm assuming towards the beginning of a relationship. So you mean to say it could get that deep that
Well,
fast?
a person that would love bomb at the beginning of the relationship
okay.
is prepping you
Yes.
so that then they'll bring it back
Gotcha. Okay.
after abuse. Yes.
So, an obsession with social media.
Yes. Well, social media, those of us who choose to be on social media, we have a persona that's on social media.
Okay.
It is not, it's kind of more like Flat Stanley though. Social media Jose does not encompass all of Jose.
No.
So if you have this persona built up, if you're immersed in it, you start to think you are Flat Stanley or Flat Jose or Flat Sharlann, but you are a whole person, and then you also
So it's not three-dimensional.
correct, and
Okay.
then you get a false sense of the way people compliment you, your
Yes,
persona,
yes.
and it's deceptive. So then when you're dating a person in person, that cannot ever match the likes, the compliments that you get online.
So I've seen someone. I was out with someone traveling. This person didn't get a lot of attention.
Okay,
They did have some sort of profile on Facebook,
right.
but they didn't. It wasn't something
It
that had
wasn't.
pictures or anything.
It
like
wasn't very active.
that. But when her birthday came, there was like the happy birthday on the timeline, and she kept checking the phones, and she was because of the attention that she was actually getting for her. So I don't think that's as bad because, again, an obsession with social media. You got people who are on social media all the time.
Right.
But at the same
Like
time, that's also a sign
it
that.
interferes with other aspects of life. I think
But-
would
But in this case, with this young lady, it was where she wanted that attention. She
The
craved that attention to the
craving.
point where, like, we're out hanging out together, traveling together, and she's paying more attention
on her
to
phone because she's craving the likes and they're not there. And
So that's a sign too.
And
because
then-
there's things, codependency is a thing.
what happens to your mood when you're on social media and now you need those likes to feel good or okay, to
So
validate
that's where it
you?
draws you in.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. So let's do another one here. Lack of communication.
Well, challenge with the lack of communication is, especially we're talking about dating. So these people are new to each other.
So,
So
they need the first thing they need to do, and it's paramount, is do nothing but communicate.
right, because how else do you learn about someone if they're
That's
not
what
communicating with you?
Movies is a horrible first date. You can't talk to a movie.
Well, I don't recommend movies as a first
I like
date
chicken wings and
personally,
dancing myself.
so
Get
you
all
can be
messy,
greasy.
Get all messy, and make all the wrong moves. Get all messy with the finger food, and now I start seeing more of who you really are.
I tell you what, now we are fortunate because there's all this cool stuff that you can do. And some of the activities are where if you're not comfortable going on a first date one-on-one because you're cautious, you're concerned about your safety, maybe you've had something in the past that makes you leery to be one-on-one, you can go on a date in a group setting where you still can be one-on-one with a person.
I feel you got like a Sharlann's boom boom room cooking up.
Well, I didn't tell you could talk about the boom boom room. I just feel like as people,
Yeah.
if we can connect and interact, like I do a lot of meetups, and my favorite meetups are the social meetups that are not about dating or even targeted to singles or married only. Because, oh gosh, the things that I see on social media where adults have relocated and they want friends in the area and they just have no idea how to make friends, like in some of my mom groups, and they're like, I'm this age, I've moved here and I'm just looking for friends, or I have kids, I'm looking for another mom, I want somebody to go on walk, whatever it is. People need to connect to people, and social media is not always about that, even though it
This
is.
is true. Even
To
though
make
I do
person-to-person
think when it comes to
contacts.
meetups, a lot of the meetups, you got so you got 15 people that may show up. You may have 30 people that show up. Now, a 30 people in attendance at a meetup. That's probably either a well-organized meetup or it's a very big.
Well, the meetup I was at on Saturday evening was a movie meetup. There was to be 17 of us, including the host. I think one person couldn't make it, but the host went out of their way to say, this is the capacity, we have a waiting list, and it was organized beautifully. She provided snacks, we brought drinks, and the vibe of it was amazing. We had a range of ages. We watched a horror movie. It's October, Halloween's
So it's almost
coming.
like forget dating, let's have fun.
Right. Because,
I'm not saying that you can't date,
right.
but in the group setting, that person.
Let's take the pressure off.
So, the person that doesn't know how to receive a man coming on to them,
Okay.
or a man that does not understand or perceives pressure when they're trying to trap,
Like social
come on
cue
to a
issues.
woman.
Yes.
I think the group setting with activities can lower their. I think they can be more themselves, and then
They
open
feel
up a bit.
safe and comfortable because you're in a
Barriers come
group.
down, they're not as rigid,
Right.
and something may happen. So it's almost like we're creating a breeding ground for you to open up, and then people can see who you are.
Right.
And then at that point, whether you want to date or not,
It's
you
up
learn
to
become
you.
more open.
Right.
But it becomes a comfortable environment. So it almost becomes like a sanctuary group for being friendly,
Right.
being open to friends, and then and it's awkward because two awkward people. It's
Well, like
dating is not as
you have
straightforward
introverts and
for us.
extroverts,
Yeah,
and
so-
there are meetups just for introverts and extroverts to interact. Because just because a person is an introvert does not mean they don't want to interact with others.
Yeah, that's true.
They just need more, maybe security, prompting, an activity that cultivates it.
So, another red flag. Give me the 10-second version of your answer. Not getting along or having bad relationships with friends or family.
Well, if you have difficulty getting along with friends and family, that family, we're given our family for the most part, even though I believe in blended family. You know, I have two of my children are adopted, so family is also what you make it. But if you can't get along with
Mom and
family,
dad. You got mommy issues and daddy issues.
okay,
However,
but
like
let's
we talked
address,
earlier, what if they say they don't want to talk about it?
right, but let's address friends. Friends are, I feel, my friends are the family I choose. If you can't get along with the people you chose, why? Why again? Why?
So most likely it's because someone has violated the code of friendship. It could be you, it could be
But
them.
all of them?
But then hold on. But then, what about conflict resolution? That's all we've ever done with friends. I mean, we learned that on the school ground, I mean, the play yard.
But do we learn it? So you may have learned it on the schoolyard, and maybe I did too. But learned a lot from home as well. So we don't know what those people's home life were like. And do I really want to punish someone because as a child, when they should have been protected, they were abused, violated, or just not safe, or maybe just not taught the things they needed to know? And as an adult, we have to identify, do we need outside help, professional help, therapy, whatever the case may be. But we can't, I feel like it's unfair to punish the victim.
So you talked about certain things early on, and you talked about, where it's possible the person may need therapy.
Yes.
So let me ask you something. You meet someone, hypothetically, and you're sizing them up for a dating situation. You find out that they could really use some therapy to continue working on themselves before they can be readily available for dating.
Relationship. Right.
Do you communicate that, or you take your red flag and walk away?
It depends on what the situation is. That has to be reviewed case by case
Because
because
you have no obligation to this person.
you don't. You do not have an obligation
And
to
you
a
don't know how they're
person.
going to receive it.
Correct. So if communicating it is going to jeopardize your safety, no. I would say no.
Can you text it? By the way, we don't want to date no more. But I just want to let you know that you need some therapy, brother.
I would say that the minimum respect a person deserves is a communication that the relationship you're not going to move forward with the relationship versus the ghosting or just nothing.
So I don't know if I've ghosted, but you remember I was locked down for a while. I was in a long-term marriage and led to another marriage and all that other good stuff. But
Right.
I did kind of ghost somebody, but I didn't. I didn't because the girl kept calling me, and I'd answer. Okay, I didn't answer all the time, but I would answer, and then
Okay.
kind of whenever it was like she could tell I wasn't really interested, but she
Okay.
kept trying. It's almost she really wanted this. And
Right,
then
yeah.
by the time she got the hint, I think she received it in a bad way. And we talked about a little bit what came after. So,
Right.
but the thing is, should I really have explained to her what the problem was?
Well,
She was
you
short
don't,
fused.
it's not always required for you to go in depth with the reasoning, but I think that it's important to let a person know you should not continue to invest your time in this because I'm not willing to go further.
That's fine.
And
But
they
we're
may
talking-
act-
We're talking
okay.
about, hey, we're noticing something. They may need clinical help.
Okay. So, myself personally, because of how I interact and deal with people, and I have a very soft voice, and I can say something really mean to someone, and they're kind of like, and then they get home and they're like, Sharlann insulted me, didn't she? Or it happens on the way home. Right. So, where I may be able to say, Jose, you really need some anger management. Somebody else.
But you've said certain things to me and other folks that I've witnessed. You could be kidding, you could be being truthful, or you could be somewhere in between.
Okay. So
People don't explain that.
if I really feel like somebody is in crisis and I want to help them, then I'm going to pull them aside. We're not going to be in a group or anything. I'm going to say, look, this, and I apologize if I'm overstepping, but I noticed this, and I don't know if you noticed this about yourself, but from my perception, and I could be wrong,
Yes.
I'm noticing this.
And I've had mentors that say, hey, you know what, look, you can tell me to go ahead of myself.
Right.
But I just want to bring this up. Boom, 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 boom. And you did this, and then the client is wondering why that, you know. But it's more of a personal thing, right? They didn't have to come say something to
Right.
you.
They made it.
So
It was a
how they're gonna
choice.
receive it, that's important because
So-
a lot of people don't receive. I've lived
They
there,
can't
people
receive
tell me,
information,
I've
right.
told them something that I know is true.
Right.
Sharlann, I know
Oh,
that I
well-
know that I know it's true.
Right.
And they look at me like, the f out of here.
Everybody can't receive everything at every time. I have a very strong customer service background, and I use it all the time. And so sometimes if there's a parallel with myself, I may share a personal experience, make myself vulnerable so that they don't have to feel so vulnerable or feel attacked. Well, when my situation where I had dealt with this, and then someone advised or a therapist advised that maybe I go to these support group meetings. And I did that and it helped me.
And then even when you do that, you have to find one that you think can help you.
Absolutely.
But you can't be in denial. You can't go to the one that agrees with
So
everything.
if someone is completely, totally unprepared to receive the information, there is nothing that you can do to force or change that. As much as we want to help someone, we cannot help someone who's not ready to be helped. And I have been that person. I am a very different person now than I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But I have been dealing with my chronic illness throughout all that time. So I can't blame it on that. So as long as I'm willing to learn, grow, and mature, then I'll be better equipped to receive when a friend is sharing, hey, I noticed this. You've done it for me. That's part of the reason we're friends. Jose may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I appreciate
Thank you.
your honesty.
We got that on video.
Tell everybody, Jose may
It's a
not
wrap.
be everybody's cup
We
of
can go home
tea.
now.
Oh, but
Yeah, so it's important because the thing is that the change,
right,
improvement, adjustments, there are challenges there.
right. It's
We
not
don't- we
easy
don't-
to
we don't
change
like
the way we,
challenges.
right? It's not easy. Some of my behaviors, most of my behaviors are automatic. They may be from childhood. They're ingrained. I don't realize I'm doing them. So I am so appreciative that I'm at a point in my life there's been therapy. I would sort my faith, my religious beliefs, which I respect anybody's religious beliefs
Yes,
that are not.
absolutely.
I don't really want to hear about if you're doing anything evil, hurtful.
Or illegal for that matter.
Oh, yes.
Not here.
But if it's I have to respect other people's beliefs and wishes if I want to respect that person. And then what is your goal? If your goal is not to hurt someone and you're sincere, hopefully that person can receive that. But if they can't, you can't change anybody else but yourself. And guess what?
And that takes work because you have
It's
to.
difficult to change yourself.
You have to go in it with a mindset of change. Because if you don't change your mind, then nothing else is going to follow.
Correct.
If you only take
You
steps,
can be robotic and do the
That
right
won't work. That
actions.
won't work.
It won't last. It's not
at
sustainable.
all. At all.
It's not sustainable.
So
Did we hit the whole list?
I don't know.
I don't think I